Good evening all, and welcome. I hope you're sitting or laying comfortably. Tonight, we are going to dive into the creepy world of sleep paralysis. When you wake up in the middle of the night, unable to move, unable to do anything. But is there something watching you? Could it be all in your mind? Or perhaps it's really there? I suppose you'll have to wait and find out. So get comfortable and let the darkness take control. I'm 19 now, but I was 16 at the time. Now I've always been superstitious, but I never talked about the stuff because it scares the crap out of me. And I think that anything involving the dead or spirits should be left alone and not discussed. But anyway, I had a friend of mine who had a dog, and her and her mother were not going to be home that night. So they asked me if I would be kind enough to dog/house sit. Now I had spent countless nights there and had never got a bad feeling about the place. There was only one time it was suspect or so, and it was because another one of my friends was doing the same thing as I was some time before, and called me to come stay the night with her, because she was getting a really creepy vibe from the house. But it was a full moon night, so I assumed it was just the effects of that. So anyway, I went over to the house, saw my friend and her mum, and hung out for a while. They left eventually, and it was just me and the dog on the couch watching TV. I did this until it was dark, and at around 8 o'clock at night, I started getting this feeling, like there was something watching me. The house itself is set up so that the master bedroom is a loft, so that it looks out over the main living room, and I found myself continually looking up there. I just ignored it, and eventually got lost in watching the TV again. But God, do I wish I didn't. Around 11 or 12, I decided it was time to hit the hay, and considering I was the only one there, I wanted to sleep in the awesomely comfy master bedroom in the loft. So I went up there and laid down and went to sleep. This is the time that it starts to get scary. As I'm laying there, I start to hear these sounds, like a man talking. Not really anything I could make out, but I've known my head to do these things when I'm trying to go to sleep, so I just ignored it and eventually fell asleep. I woke up around an hour or two later to the same noises, and just when I was trying to get to sleep this time, they were louder and definitely more prominent. I was scared, but I was also tired, so I tucked my head under the blankets and went to sleep. Now this part I'm going to tell you is why I wear a cross around my neck and will no longer spend a night in my friend's house. I was in the bed on my back when I woke up for the third time, but when I woke up, there was this feeling in me that I could never describe the feeling to you guys, but the closest I can get would be pure evil. I woke up, and all the most horrible feelings you can have as a human were around me, like I was just weirded out, and my brain kind of got really alert really fast, but it was like a presence was around me. The next thing I noticed was a pressure on my chest, like someone was sitting on me when I looked up, and I saw no figure, but I could sense where its body was. Then I tried to move my hands and legs, but I couldn't. They were being pinned down by whatever it was that was there with me. I started freaking out and thrashing with all my strength, and it was at that point that I closed my eyes and was able to see it. It was as if he painted his image to the inside of my eyelids, and when they closed, all I could see was a dark, shadowy figure right on top of me, and I felt all these feelings of evil and terror, and I can't even explain it, just get worse, and then that's when it made this noise. This noise was the most guttural, horrible, fear-instilling noise that I've ever heard in my entire life. It was a growl that still to this day, when I think about it, makes me scared, and will always. It is still the one thing from what happened that I've never been able to accurately describe to another person. This all happened in a short second, while my eyes were closed, and when they opened, I went into some type of super strength survival mode. I pushed harder against whatever it was than I ever have in my entire life. Even with that, I wasn't able to overpower it, but this strength did allow me to slide my legs over the edge of the bed. Once most of my legs were off, I felt only the force of it pushing down on my wrists, which I was able to slide my torso off the bed, and when that happened, the pressure of my wrists went away. I got down the stairs as fast as I could and grabbed all of my things and put them in the car and left. I drove down into town and stared at the creek and packed a lip. It was 5 a.m. when all of this happened. I called my friend's mum and told her I had to leave because something happened. I didn't tell her what until I met her at the house when they got back a little bit later that morning. I talked to her about it a couple of days later, and I hadn't noticed, but she said I had all the symptoms of shock when she saw me. But either way, that's why I don't talk about this stuff often, and I'm only telling you because I think it should be heard. The scariest thing that's ever happened to me was the following. I often suffer from sleep paralysis. If you don't know what it is, from my understanding, it's when you suddenly wake up from REM sleep, the dreaming part, and your brain hasn't quite connected back your body, so you can't move, but you're awake. It's often accompanied by the feeling of something in the room with you. I believe it's also triggered by stress. The first time I had it, I had woken up lying on my stomach, and I had thought the door to my room had opened and someone had been standing there. At first I thought it was my dad, but then as this person stood there watching me from the doorway, I realized it wasn't my dad. I had a small collection of knives I had picked up from different parts of the world, and one of them was right by my bed. But when I couldn't reach out to grab it, I realized what was happening, and it wasn't so scary. Another time it happened was when I was in a new room in my old house's basement. When I woke up, I couldn't place exactly what woke me up, but after a moment I couldn't sense anything. I don't exactly know how to describe it, how I could sense it. I couldn't see anything, smell anything, or hear anything, but I knew that there was something in there on the ceiling. Some sort of creature that was half snake, half man, that was slithering on the ceiling, and I could sense it watching me. That was kind of scary. But when I came out, it just vanished from my senses, and everything was normal. A few months ago I had the scariest moment of my life. I woke up as my blackout curtains shifted a little bit, letting in more light into the room. Not a big deal. There's a vent underneath it, and I'm super sensitive to light when I'm sleeping, and it shifted back almost immediately. Just a little light will wake me up. But then I heard a voice say, "Ah, the dark." I tried to turn towards it, but I couldn't move. But as soon as I tried, I felt something jump on top of me. It was kneeling on my right arm, and pinned my other arm, and it started choking me, and shaking me, and shouting in my ear, "The darkness will be eternal. The light will never come forth." Just over and over. I have no idea how long this lasted. I was absolutely terrified. There was even enough light that I could see everything in the room, but I couldn't see what was on top of me, even though I can feel this thing breathing on my ear as it's shouting, and I can feel its hand grabbing my throat and other arm. I couldn't even shout for help. All that was coming out of my own throat were just groans and gasps that I could barely make out myself. I was trying to call for help, hoping to God that one of my roommates could hear me. Eventually I just said, Jesus. Only I couldn't say that many syllables at once, so it was more like, Jesus. And then nothing. I could move again, and I could sit up. Running to the light switch, flipping on all the lights, and opening the blackout curtains. It was suddenly just over, but it took some time for my heart to calm down. It took me an hour for me to make myself believe it was just sleep paralysis, and go back to sleep. The next day I told everyone what happened, trying to turn it into just another story, so that it wouldn't be such a big deal anymore. It's taken a long time to put the metaphorical pen to paper. Everything that I'm about to recount to you is true, and happened to me and some very close friends. I think it's best to start at the beginning. During my freshman year of college, I'm not ashamed to say that while prepping for it, I was incredibly lazy. I mean, super lazy. I knew that I had to sort out my digs, somewhere to stay, but was one of those people that just said to myself, it'll sort itself out. Of course, it didn't. I tried my best to sort stuff out a few days before I left, and at the last minute managed to find someone to split with. It was a reasonable sized apartment, and we had a pretty good time for the first few weeks, and generally no issues. The only reason I say this is because the person I was bunking with had a good friend, and we all became very close friends in a very short space of time. The lady's name in question is Terry. She was the sweetest little thing, and she lived not too far from us, about a 15-minute walk up the road. It was a quiet little spot, her place, but she always seemed tired when we'd go in for classes. I'd ask her if everything was alright, and she'd say that she just didn't sleep well. As I became more invested in our friendship, I started pushing her to tell me more about why she couldn't sleep, and one day she told me. She said that she has weird dreams while sleeping there, that sometimes she'd wake up in the middle of the night, and it would be like she was pinned to the bed and wouldn't be able to move. At the time, both of us had never even heard of sleep paralysis, so we couldn't exactly coin the phrase. She did mention that when she went home for Thanksgiving, it seemed to go away, or when she slept over at her boyfriend's house, but only when she was sleeping in her bed, in her room, did she feel that way. This put a light bulb in my head and gave me an idea. Now, my major is physics, so I love all things experiments and testing out theories and the like. I had a theory that if I perhaps slept in her bed, the same thing would happen to me. Although I'm going to be honest, I really didn't believe it. I didn't think it'd be anything supernatural, to say the least. I just assumed that the bed must be super uncomfortable, positioned in a bad way, or something like that. Truth be told, I'd never even lied in it, so this would be a fun experiment. I told her that with her permission, we could do a bed swap. She'd come and sleep over at my place, and I'd go sleep over at hers, and we'd see how we both felt. We both had classes next morning at roughly the same time, and agreed to meet at lunch to talk about how we felt. The deal was done. We exchanged our keys, and we went on our way. I arrived to her apartment, and had a nice little time watching TV before I got ready for bed. I looked from the doorframe down to the ominous-looking bed. The bright pink sheets really didn't give it an impression of impending doom, and without much thought, I tucked myself in I closed the curtains, tucked myself in, and passed out. At about 4 a.m, note, the only reason I know this is because her alarm clock is fully visible from the place you sleep at. So, I woke up, and I had the strangest sensation come over me. I can barely put it into words, but I couldn't move. It was like my whole body was paralyzed. I could move my eyes. I didn't even think my mouth worked. I just lie there, in the dark, staring at the ceiling, assessing what the hell was going on. That's when my eyes slowly moved down to the door frame, the door that I had left wide open. And there, in the hallway past the bedroom, was a shadow. There was a streetlight right outside the window of her living room, a window which I hadn't shut the curtains to. I was staring at this, a strange shape looming ominously in the back. I wanted to blink. I wanted to know if this was a figment of my imagination, but I didn't dare look away. I was completely terrified. The fear was getting to me, and I was starting to understand why she'd come to school tired. I assumed it was just a dream, a waking dream. I didn't know what to call it, but I was sure that this must be in my head. Surely this can't be real. That's when the thing moved. I don't really know how to describe its movement. It was like smoke moving through a room, only the smoke is a whole shape that travels completely without leaving any smoke behind. It moved and pulsated, almost like a living, breathing smoke creature. It approached the doorframe. It was very noticeable, as the absence of light moved from place to place, gliding silently across the room. I remember listening intently. It made no sound. All I could hear was the background hum of the occasional car, and her fridge freezer, gently humming, but definitely there. This thing approached even closer, and it got to the foot of the bed, and kept on going through the bed. That's when it became on top of me. I could feel its appendages reach down and push into my arms and legs. This was real. I was being pinned down by whatever the hell this was, and I was feeling like I was being choked. I was finding it hard to breathe. I was finding it hard to keep my eyes open, hearing the gentle tick of the clock in the background all the while. It didn't make sense. The sounds made it like nothing was happening, but the images I was seeing and the feelings I was feeling weren't syncing in my head. I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything, and I became overwhelmed and passed out again. I didn't sleep well, and fortunately woke up with my life the next morning. I overslept. The sound of her alarm was still going on, and I smashed that button and got up hastily. I was already 40 minutes late for class, and my lecturer, I'm sure, was not going to let me in for arriving this late. At this rate, I probably wouldn't even make it to the end of the class. So I cut my losses and just made it to the next one. When I met up with her for lunch, Terry told me that she had a wonderful night's sleep, but just by looking at my face and my clear lack of makeup, it was pretty evident that I had not. She asked what happened, and I looked at her and tried to tell her with my eyes that I didn't want to say. I don't know how to describe it. Was I ashamed of what happened? Was I terrified that I was going insane? Or did I just not believe it? I said, I don't want to talk about it here, and told her to meet me at my apartment in the evening to talk about it. but we spent the remainder of our lunch break having pleasant conversation until it was time to leave. That evening she swung by. She tried telling me that she wanted to sleep over again, just because she hated that house so much. And when she asked what happened last night, I said that I would only tell if she told me first the 100% truth, so that I felt like I wasn't going insane. She agreed, and I unloaded everything that happened that night. I'm surprised her face wasn't shocked that I was either going mad or that something happened. It was just sympathetic. When it came to her turn, she explained everything that happened. Lots of similar circumstances. The black smoke waking her up in the middle of the night, making her feel dizzy, making her fall back to sleep, making her sleep in fear. Always there, always present, and always making her feel on edge. She said that it didn't happen every night, but even when it didn't, she'd always go to bed with a feeling of impending doom, and she'd toss and turn all night, waiting for it to happen, hardly being able to sleep. I knew we had to do something about it. No way I was going to let her stay in that haunted apartment. So we came up with an idea. Even though she had a single bed, we both decided to sleep in her bed the next night, just to see if we'd both experience it. Science and stuff. So that's what we did. We both went over the next night and passed out in her bed. I admit, I found it hard to go to sleep, knowing what could happen. But eventually I managed, of course, and into the land of Nod I fell. Again, at some point during the night, I woke up. I couldn't move. But something was different this time. I could see the light to the bathroom. Now, fortunately, this was just adjacent to her room, so the light shining through the open door was very visible and illuminating for the rest of the apartment. Even though I couldn't move, I felt reassured and calm. But just when I heard her wash her hands, did I see the smoke creature once more. There it was, in the living room, in the darkness. She turned off the light, closed the door, and came closer. I don't even think she noticed that my eyes were wide open. This smoke creature was there, and as she tucked herself in and closed her eyes, the thing got ever closer. I was absolutely soiling myself in fear. The thing was at the doorframe. The thing had passed the dresser, and now it was approaching the bed. I wasn't sure which of us it was going to go for, but that's when it approached me. It must have sensed my fear, or it must have done this to me, to put me in this state. I felt the pressure exert on my arms and legs once more, with Terry next to me, completely unaware of the horrors I was going through. I felt so confused and so hopeless, as the pain from its pressure grew on my arms and legs. I found it hard to breathe. I felt like I was being choked, this time worse than the first. And the saving grace was that the noises I made actually stirred Terry. She turned around lazily and asked if I was okay. And that is when she opened her eyes. She wasn't asleep. She wasn't suffering from sleep paralysis. And she saw this creature in all its smoky glory. I don't think she knew what to do. No words escaped her mouth. But no sooner had she seen the creature, and the creature realized that she had seen it, that it suddenly evaporated, like mist, and was gone like that. My breathing had returned to normal, and she shook me a few times on the shoulder, and after I blinked, I realized that I was able to move, and that I was not asleep. We both looked at each other, and without saying words, we ran to the door I grabbed my keys from the bowl and we walked back to my apartment. She stayed with me until the end of her lease, and we used it as a sort of storage space, but never went back in the evening. She and I have remained close friends throughout the years, and only years later did I ever come across the term sleep paralysis. I'm not 100% sure if this qualifies. I'm not even sure what that thing was. We never went back to try and find out. All I know is that the people that suffer sleep paralysis are probably telling the truth. But I don't know if they're suffering from some kind of similar situation as what we had. Is it just in their heads? Or could it be something more? Something tangible and supernatural invading their thoughts, their dreams, their mind, and slowly driving them insane? Some questions we still don't have the answers to. I was living by myself and sleeping on an air mattress. It was morning and light out, and I woke up to the sound of my apartment front door opening, then furniture being moved. I heard the wires being unplugged from my computer as someone was stealing it and hauling it away. I heard banging in the kitchen and the cabinets opening, footsteps, and then the door to my bedroom open as I lay on my back staring at the ceiling. Then I heard an unbelievably loud gunshot, and then I felt a deep sinking sensation. I thought my air mattress was deflating from being shot. Either that, or I was actually experiencing the feeling of dying. Sleep paralysis. The audio hallucinations are incredibly vivid. You're on your back, unable to move, with your eyes wide open, dreaming. I must have fallen back asleep for a while after that, and later bolted awake and rushed out to my living room to find nothing stolen. I had an episode recently where I was aware that I was having sleep paralysis and told my husband next to me that I couldn't move and was having trouble breathing. He put his hand on my shoulder and told me I was going to be fine. I was just dreaming, and that I would wake up soon. I was able to move my hand and touch his, but his hand wasn't there. I snapped awake and realized he wasn't there at all. The experience was so real, it was haunting. Sleep paralysis plagues me all the time. It's more common in migraine sufferers, but it's genuinely given me some of the freakiest experiences of my life. I get where alien abduction stories come from. They were probably experiencing sleep paralysis. This is what I texted my mom at 1:24 last night. I don't know how else to say this. I saw demons in my room just now. They attacked me. I'm seriously scared. I was asleep, and I had this really weird dream filled with witches, candlelight swamp rituals. Matthew, my middle brother, was there, and we were running around this town chasing each other to find our lost bikes. I thought I found him, but it was a deformed man. I was driving my car, then more came out, hundreds in this run-down part of town. They stalled out my car and broke the windows. They clawed at me and began pulling me from the car, saying that they were here to kill me. When I awoke, I saw two things holding me down. I couldn't see faces, but they had arms, legs, and bodies. Their skin was wispy, like smoke, and looked like those fancy dress socks with patterns. I couldn't move. Then they backed away from me and disappeared like smoke. Then all around my room I saw writing and what looked to be masks all over the place. They then disappeared in a similar fashion. I ran out of the room, my heart pounding, and I'm on the smoke deck. I've never seen or felt anything like that. I can feel where they held onto my ankle, and it still feels like someone is gripping me. I've been sleeping in my room lately because I need a new bed desperately, and all of this occurred on my couch. My living room is a small square, maybe 12 feet by 12 feet. I have a really comfy black leather sectional couch and a TV stand and a flat screen TV and a coat rack, all in my living room. I sleep on the end of the couch where I can see the TV and straight through the house to the kitchen while lying on my left side. At the time, my 14-year-old son would sleep on the other end of the couch, so I wasn't alone or afraid, and I'm not easily scared. The first night I woke up, eyes wide open, but I could not move my body. The only thing I could move were my eyes, and I could hear and see all around me. When I woke up, standing right in front of me was an almost completely black figure that stood maybe 4 feet tall. Imagine the Muppet Beaker, but all black with white eyes and black pupils. This is why I question if it was just a dream. So as soon as I'm aware of it, Shadow Beaker knows I am awake and looks at me as it contorts its neck so that its body is still upright, but its head is now completely upside down. Surprisingly, I looked Shadow Beaker in the eyes and conveyed to it, non-verbally, that I would kill it, and it just vanished, and I was able to move freely. I think that I pissed something off, because the next night, I was lying in the same position on the couch, the same as the night before, when I became aware of my surroundings. I also found that I couldn't move. My 14-year-old son, or what I thought was my son, was standing at the threshold between the living room and the dining room. He didn't look right, so I moved my eyes to the right to see if my son was still on the couch sleeping, and he was. So I moved my eyes back to where this lookalike was standing, and as I caught sight of it again, it crouched down in the way a primate would when they are about to take off running. It moved towards me, still crouched down, and when it gets to the couch, it jumps over me and leaves my line of sight. I moved my eyes in the direction it went and could not see it, but I could feel what felt like very hot breath on my ear and side of my face. It was as if someone had their face right up next to my ear and was breathing very heavily. So I thought the words in the name of Jesus and was able to move again. The next night, I was lying on my stomach, but my head was slightly hanging off the couch with my face towards the floor, when I became aware of the room around me. There was a small person in a long white dress and floppy white sun hat rubbing the back of my head in a soothing way. Although they were small, I didn't get the impression this was a child. I was not afraid and didn't feel threatened, but I also didn't trust it. The thing is, I don't remember how I got out of this one, but after a few minutes I could move again. Finally, when I became aware on the last night, I was practically sitting straight up with my back against the armrest and my legs on the couch. I know for a fact that I laid all the way down on the couch to go to sleep. Also, it felt like there was something trying to choke me from behind with one hand, but the strangest thing was that I didn't feel a human hand. I'm still trying to figure this one out, honestly. The best description I can give is that it felt like 3 long fingers, 2 wrapped around the left side of the back of my neck and 1 around the right side. The grip kept getting tighter and tighter until I was feeling like I couldn't breathe. In my head I began to think, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. And I became able to move. As I regained movement, I screamed out the same thing, and I was released, or woke up, or whatever. And I haven't had another experience like that since. I think I was dreaming, but those experiences seemed so real. Can anyone help shed some light on this, or point me in the right direction? I stayed at a friend's house about 3.5 months ago, and this is when it first started. We ate dinner and watched the Golden Girls before crashing out. I told her I was ready for bed and headed to the guest room. She asked if I would leave the door open because her cat likes to go in there, and if I didn't, he'd scratch the door. So I left it open. I didn't mind though because the living room light was on, and it was comforting me since I've never slept there before. Okay, so I'm sleeping, and I get woken up by the cat jumping on the bed and across my back. He doesn't actually land on me. I'm laying face down and don't think anything of it. Then I felt something else move across my back, in a very similar fashion to how the cat felt jumping over me. But it was going in the same direction as the cat. I hear the cat meow and hiss, and then I hear it, and a little girl's voice. I want to get up there too. I tried to jump up, but I couldn't move. I was in complete panic and couldn't move. Something pushed across my back again, and then the cat hisses again and jumps after whatever was there. I have never been more scared in my life. I felt paralyzed, and not by fear, but by a pressure holding me down. I am not a religious person, but I started praying and getting a little emotional. Finally, I fell back asleep. I had to be up around 6 a.m. the next day to go to work, and my alarm went off as planned. My friend, who was in the other room, yells and asks if I'm awake. I get up to go to her room and tell her good morning, and she asks how I slept, so I told her not that great. She replies that neither did she. I told her that I kept having dreams about a demonic little girl in my room. This completely freaked her out, and she told me that she had the same thing. She grew up in that house, and she said she'd never had anything like that happen. While I was getting ready for work, the cat that saved me would not leave my side. He literally laid on my feet while I did my makeup. I am not a fan of cats, but trust me, it was very welcomed that he didn't leave me. I've had 2 more episodes where I hear voices and wake up in a panic. I'm not sure if the last 2 are just nightmares, but it's scaring me and making it difficult to want to go to sleep. I feel like she's following me. Last weekend, I had the same dream Saturday and Sunday night. I have had an attachment in the past, so I know what it feels like to be in the presence of a negative entity. During the dream I encountered, that same negative feeling was able to fight back or hold off that feeling with my own energy. It was really terrifying to confront this negative energy / entity head on in the dream, because in real life, I always run from it. Towards the end of the nightmare, I start hearing my bedroom door rattle and shake like someone was trying to get in. After a while, I became fully aware of what's going on around me, but I can't wake up, and someone is still messing with the door, like they can't quite figure out how to use the doorknob. I ended up drifting off to sleep, and when I finally wake up, my bedroom door is open. Sunday night, I made sure that I shut and latched the door all the way. I have the same dream and sleep paralysis experience, and when I wake up, my door is open. My grandma recently passed, and my mum brought her ashes here, but removed them from the house shortly after, because weird things started happening, along with a foul, sulphury smell that moved through the house. She had thoroughly cleansed the house with sage, black salt, and obsidian. I think whatever she cast out was trying to get back in through me that last weekend. Sleep paralysis. I've had it since I was maybe 7 or 8, and am now 19. It used to be an episode or 2 a month, but now it's multiple a night. I'm used to it now, but regardless of how many times it's happened to me, there's always new feelings with it. Sleep paralysis, in general, isn't what scares me, but the out-of-body experience that one can achieve while doing so. I had my first OBE when I was 14, and the only key thing I remember from that is leaving my body, going down the stairs in my house, and seeing my mother bringing groceries. Now that sounds normal for any average family, but my mother is a homeless drunk who would rather get free brews and sleep under a bridge than have a family and responsibilities. This gets even weirder, because the other 3 OBs I've had all showed my mum doing weird chores in the house. Dishes, laundry, vacuuming. I wish I could have more OBs to understand what my mind is trying to tell me. I've always assumed it was to let go of the hope that I have for my mother of being a responsible person. A while back, my sister Emma told the family she had this terrifying sleep paralysis, and she saw a white humanoid creature with black eyes looking at her from the foot of her bed. She never had sleep paralysis before, and hasn't had it since. Now after this incident, my other sister's boyfriend John had the same exact sleep paralysis, with the same creature on the same night, except this time he had a dream where he saw the monster running into Emma's house the night she had the incident. At this point, they had no way of communicating with each other, so they couldn't have planned out this as a prank. I didn't believe it either, but they both sounded genuinely terrified when they talked about this experience. I really haven't been able to come up with any explanation. They hadn't seen any scary movies or anything that would bring up this creature, and it's still a mystery to us all. My sleep paralysis was traumatizing. I still get chills when I think about it. The only reason I didn't jump up screaming in absolute terror was that I knew what sleep paralysis is. I'm pretty sure it was a demon. It was the voice of my mother screaming my name in absolute terror, while I heard crashes and explosions and some kind of demonish/hellish background noise. I do not wish the experience I had to my worst enemy, and I still can't grasp how terrifying it was. Hey guys, it's Mort here, and thank you so much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed these videos that I've done the last 2 days. 2 topics I'd never done before, so I hope you liked them. If you did, please do not forget to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And for those of you interested, I do have another PO Box unboxing video which you can find in the secret message section. No need to check it out if you don't want to though. It's just a mini bonus for those of you interested. Oh, and if you want to send me stuff too, the link is in the description. Well, it's not a link, it's an address. The address is in the description. If you liked the video, like I said, please do drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. That's always something really nice to do, and I do enjoy reading what you guys have to say. If you do want to share a story, feel free to post it to my Reddit or send it to my email. Just please be sure to include plenty of punctuation, good grammar, paragraphing and description, as this will optimize the chances of your story being read in a future video. But anyway, for now guys, I'm going to sign off. Sweet dreams, and I'll see you in the next one.